This week on the It's a Monkey podcast.
I don't know about you, but I hate doing QuickBooks. It's really frustrating for me. It's not something I enjoy doing. But if I hire someone to do my QuickBooks, they have to love doing QuickBooks as much as I love being an entrepreneur. Those are the type of people we're looking for. People who are not just in it for the paycheck. They're passionate about whatever it is they do, whether it's graphic design or writing or Amazon, whatever it is.
Good morning, good evening, hello, wherever you are in the world. My name is Kevin Garber. It is Thursday, the 23rd of November, 2017, nearly the end of 2017. How fast has that gone? Wow. You're listening to the It's a Monkey podcast. My name is Kevin Garber. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ManageFlitter. And as usual, I have my co-host. Again, very happy to have her in the physical studio in Sydney, Australia, Kate Frappell, who's the design lead of ManageFlitter. Kate, thanks for joining us.
No worries. It's good to be here again.
As usual, we have a great show lined up for you. It's episode 110. If you missed our interview last week with Scott Smith from Cloud App, have a listen because we had a chat. Scott used to work at Facebook and we had a very interesting chat about life inside Facebook. So that's at episode 109, last week's episode. But today we've got a really fantastic episode planned for you. Before we get into the tech news, I'll tell you about the interview we have coming up later on in the show. I chatted with Nathan Hirsch, who's the founder and CEO of FreeeUp. He's also known as the remote hiring guy. FreeeUp is a platform for pre-qualified freelancers. And we had a fantastic chat about remote work and distributed teams, which is a theme because we are a distributed team. We have approximately half of our small team is in Sydney, with the rest distributed around the world. And I think there's huge benefits to a distributed team. So stick around for that. And as usual, you can email us at podcast@itsamonkey.com. You can tweet us at monkeypodcast. So we love to hear from you and we love to know what you like and what you don't like, and even just to let us know where in the world you are and that you're out there. So we look forward to hearing from you. Tech news. We like to start off the podcast with a couple of tech news items because there is always so much going on in our world. And I always these days have to stop myself from talking about Bitcoin. I think I drive everyone in the office mad about talking about Bitcoin. It's just so interesting. It's just such a shift happening. Maybe I should do a Bitcoin podcast.
Maybe. And then when you come in the office and tell us that it hits an all-time high every second day, nobody will feel bad about not investing in it yet.
Well, yes. I've got a friend, and every time I text him about Bitcoin, he says, I've got FOMO every time I hear that word. So, yeah, but it's besides the price and, people having, lost out on the price rises, etc., and some people making a lot of money, that's actually not what I find most interesting about it. What I find most interesting about it is this new digital gold, this new store of value that it's becoming. Eventually, the price is going to settle. Where that is, no one knows, but eventually it will settle, and this crazy volatility will go out, and then it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But anyway, let's get straight into the news items. Last episode, we spoke about emojis, and we had a little discussion of who decides how to create an emoji, and do platforms have similar emojis. And I see that iOS has updated its emoji set.
Yeah. So there's a whole heap of new emojis that have gone through the Unicode Consortium, which is like the gatekeepers of emojis. Yeah, and so just did a bit of reading after chatting about it last week. So 6 billion emojis are sent every day. This started off as a collection of 176 low-res 12 by 12 pixels in Japan. So initially an idea behind Japanese cell phone companies, and they didn't have a standardized system. So American cell phone companies, when they came into the market, they thought, well, this is a little bit crazy, but these are super popular. So they decided to start putting individual codes on them. And Unicode are responsible for giving codes to all sorts of characters, so letters, numbers, any kind of glyphs. And they decided to add the same thing into emojis. At first they denied it, and then by 2006 they took them on. And so, yeah, now these emojis can come out. Anyone can design them.
I saw that. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, put them to Unicode, and then 4 times a year they have like a meeting where you can do your pitch for 5 minutes. After you've been sort of vetted, there is a first process as well. And then if they're happy with it and it's something that doesn't clash with other emojis and it's an apparent, and something that already exists, and we have to prove that it's already popular, like through hashtags or Google searches and stuff like that. So it can't be a fad, it can't be a fidget spinner. And then, they mock up something, and then it goes into the library, and then Google and Facebook and Apple design their own versions of it.
Right, okay. So there's a skeleton of the emoji in a way, or a guideline, and they put an implementation of that specific emoji. Yeah.
So they have to try and be culturally aware to a certain extent. It's not perfect, but a good example is like the farmer, like a little picture of a farmer. If it was truly sort of American Gothic style, it might have a pitchfork, but that doesn't relate to, for example, Asian countries. So It might be better that they make the farmer hold, a grain of wheat or, some kind of plant or something like that. More generalized. Yeah.
It's a difficult one, though, because you can't ever get away from culture. Culture always exists. So, it sounds like it's like an open source type of process, right?
Yeah.
It's and that's what's so fascinating about the internet. It's built on all these different open source elements. So it's interesting that emoji is as well. So what happens when I receive a text message from someone on an Apple and my Android just puts it as a nothing?
That would mean that Google haven't got a design for that particular emoji.
Right.
So it's still part of the emoji library.
Right.
But I think they can pick and choose which ones they have designs for.
Right. Interesting. Okay. And so they're always upgrading to the latest emoji sets, but they may leave some out for whatever reason, or...
Yeah. It could as well just depend on the speed of the process. So if the emoji committee say, they meet 4 times a year, so they say...
How cool is that, the emoji committee?
Yeah. Well, they're called the Unicode Consortium.
Right.
They're basically in charge of passing emoji ideas.
So the Unicode is actually, I think, more than emojis, right? It's a lot of the other characters as well.
Yeah. So that's the reason they sort of got the job, is because they already had
processes
place for all sorts of letters and numbers.
Hey, is ASCII art still a thing?
Not sure what that is.
You don't? Well, obviously not, right? So ASCII characters are like in the early days of the internet, before images and video, the net was all text. Text is essentially ASCII. It stands for American Standard something information interchange. It's an agreed upon set of characters. And because there were no images or videos, people would make art out of characters, right? Crazy art. They would do portraits and animals and all sorts of things. And it was a thing, ASCII art. So...
Probably. I can imagine that's sort of like a more artistic spin on typography, but I've never heard it be called that.
I remember in the late 90s, a friend sent me a happy birthday message with ASCII, like the H was all like H's and in the shape of the H, and the A is all the A's, and she...
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and she sent me this, and she said, "Did you like my message?" I said, "Oh, yeah, it was great." She said, "I hope so. It took me ages, because you can imagine every letter based on the letters and the spacing, and so that was what the internet was really built on in a way." But now emojis, interesting, interesting. So,
and there's also an argument as well that, so for example, on Slack, you can create your own emojis, but they're not actually emojis, they're just GIFs. Little pictures.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, and you can add them into the library. So some people sort of argue that, because the committee only meet 4 times a year, they're not moving fast enough, so that maybe the cell phone companies and stuff should move towards this customized approach. But then on the other hand, you're losing that kind of universal language and understanding of what these things are.
Could argue both ways, because in a way, if everyone creates their own set, it will be a bit Darwinian, right?
Yeah.
Android users will go, "Oh, we want the surfing emoji too," or something. It will be a little bit Darwinian, but it will be a bit of a mess.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's I mean, Slack sort of do it well, but they have the emoji library and then custom.
And Slack's different. I mean, Slack's essentially a private network. It's a closed ecosystem.
Yeah.
You're all sitting in Slack, so you can all see. But as soon as you come down to sending text messages or emails or social media platforms at different devices, it's a whole different thing, you know. But for closed ecosystems, it makes sense. Well, now the mystery's been solved of the world behind the emoji. Hey, we should get someone from the emoji committee on. That would be so interesting.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you have any contacts to the emoji committee, it would be really interesting. I'm always fascinated by these processes, you know, whether it's Linux or Bitcoin, and you know these self-organizing systems. You know, and the big festival that I go to, that's been going in Australia for over 40 years, Confest. It's a self-organizing system. There's just some very, very bare bones of infrastructure, but then the actual sequence of events and the workshops are just sort of plug into that framework, and people organize them themselves. It's sort of like the unconference idea, you know, like bar camp, and it works remarkably well. You know, it's a fine balance in terms of what you have to organize, and it needs time to create the culture around that. But once people are aware of how it works, this crowdsourcing type of self-organizing system, it's quite remarkable, and it really challenges the producer-consumer mindset. So even open source, if you think about it, it's not a producer-consumer mindset, right? Linux or Bitcoin, you can't really go to anyone and complain about it, right? It's not like if you're unhappy with your hotel room and you go chat to the. So this festival that I go to has got such a distributed set of organizers that very difficult to know who to complain to or who you have an issue with. So that's what's so fascinating about the internet, that it is an open source environment. And there's a lot of people are worried about a lot of these very successful companies, Google, Facebook, Twitter, building these gated internet in a way. So a lot of people are saying, you know, you shouldn't build up Facebook fan pages because Facebook could just switch off your fan page for whatever reason one day. Whereas if you build up an email newsletter list, well, no one's going to ever be able to really prevent you from sending an email out to your subscribers. So interesting arguments that the internet was built on, you know, much more decentralized and non-commercial type of environment. So anyway, we digress from emojis. Second news item, speaking of Facebook are always doing something new. What have they released this time, Kate?
So Facebook have basically rejigged their Mentions app. So Mentions used to be sort of a creator platform, but only for people with verified pages. Now they've got Facebook Creator, which is sort of a big step towards Facebook's vision to become like a video platform. And it allows all profiles and pages to do, you know, like more insights, data, and just video tools so that they could go live. So customized intros, outros, custom reactions. So people watching the videos can react in more ways than the 6 that they already provide. A unified inbox, so commenting from Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger all in one place. And the ability to post content straight to Facebook stories and cross-promote between Facebook and Instagram. So they're really building up this video platform for anyone that sort of wants to get their business out there, share ideas, or just share themselves on their profiles.
So is this for everyone or still verified people only?
Everyone.
So it's a video platform for everyone to do live videos, recorded, anything?
Live videos.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is for the Facebook Live and an enhanced set of features, functionality around Facebook Live.
Yeah, basically. And they've also got a section, or a website actually, Facebook Creators website, and it has like tips and shows you who's doing interesting things and how they're doing it and how they're using the tools basically.
It's interesting. I mean, Facebook Live, it's going to become... I always think when these initiatives happen, and obviously when Facebook Live came out, how much headspace do people have? You know, we're so saturated with content everywhere, right? Are we going to be able to sustain, you know, more and more content? I mean, it's obviously going to be very competitive to create good content. But now, how many of these Facebook Lives are going to be a thing? Are we going to watch? I mean, do any of your friends do Facebook Lives? I got a couple of friends that are more the author type, performer types that do it quite regularly as a thing.
Not many, no. Like even at the moment, I look at my Facebook. There's one person that's done like a Facebook story,
Right?
which is like a Snapchat style type thing. But very, very rarely do I see live videos. Like it's not really a thing. But Facebook are also pulling back a little bit, which I think is wise of them. So they used to have Messenger Day, which were like, again, stories, but from Messenger. And then they brought in Facebook stories as well and Instagram stories. So they're pulling Messenger Day and incorporating that with Facebook stories. So it's all the same thing, which I think is a good idea. And Instagram, they've actually put more features in, but I guess the latest one is a hashtag. You can follow hashtags now instead of just people. So you can find trending hashtag and choose to follow that. It's actually just in testing at the moment, but there's arguments that all these Facebook products are getting a little bit bloated, and they just sort of need to pull back a little bit, which I think I agree with.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're always exploring new ways to find areas to shove ads into. And,
well, the interesting thing about this creator platform is they haven't actually incorporated a way to monetize it yet. So it's sort of becoming a bit of a YouTube type thing. So people can create videos and, make tutorials and share things exactly like YouTube, but they don't have like subscriptions, tipping, revenue ads. The only option at the moment is you can post sponsored or branded content and label it with like a tagging feature, but that's it.
Well, I think ultimately if they have a revenue sharing type situation, I think YouTube's got that where they'll share some of the ad revenue, right?
Yeah, I think it's like 55% to 45%.
Yeah, which
so
is
the creator gets 55.
That's not. I mean, that's pretty fair.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty fair if they're providing the platform, and I can see Facebook doing that as well. I wonder if one day Facebook and Instagram are going to become one product.
They might. I mean, apparently in 2014, Mark Zuckerberg is quoted as saying that Facebook will be mostly video in 5 years' time.
Yeah,
and that was 2014. So, plus they integrated a new like a tab at the bottom of the app called Watch, and it's sort of the beginning of what you imagine would be episodes or series and stuff. So you could watch all these videos on Facebook.
What's so interesting, and it's a known phenomenon with software and products in general, is that a product starts out simple, becomes very successful because of its simplicity. Over time, it matures and evolves, and they jam in all sorts of features. Before you know it, it's a very complicated product and very diverse product. And what it does then is it opens up an avenue for someone to start a new simple product that was the original thing.
Possibly,
right?
Yeah. But it depends whether people want to do the simplified version anymore. So Facebook, if they're smart, they might drop the text side of things and go full video if that's what people want and they're going to use. And if someone brings a text version in, then maybe society won't want that anymore.
Well, or they just buy it.
Yes.
If it's successful.
Yeah.
Which is what they did with that anonymous social media platform. After 9 months, it had Facebook bought it for $100 million.
Is that Yik Yak?
No. Yik Yak actually folded a few months ago, but it was the problem with anonymous social media platforms was harassment and bullying, and this platform had solved that by, as far as I understand, it was an anonymous social media platform with the view to you only share positive anonymous things.
Right.
And somehow they got a lot of traction in schools and university. And Facebook bought it after 9 months for about $100 million. What's interesting, the company that created this have been creating products for a few years, and they were about 3 months out of running out of money. They were at the end of the road, and this guy, the CEO, it was the last little bit, and thinking of creating an anonymous, positive style social media network, and they cracked it. Zero revenue after 9 months, but lots of users, and Facebook just bought them outright for $100 million.
Wow.
So that's their strategy. You know, when you've got so much cash, you can just... Microsoft does that as well. You know, Microsoft bought LinkedIn, it bought Skype. They just buy these things. They got cash is the least of their worries. Apple as well, though Apple seems to be much more selective.
Yeah, Apple sort of go after patents and technology, right? Like even before it's well known, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Although they did buy Beats by Dre, which was a bit of a strange one.
That's true.
The headphone one, but they've
It's
got...
one of those things, if you like you just have to look at Snapchat as well. You know, if you don't let them buy you, they'll just copy you.
Yeah, they will, but, you know, I mean, if you take the very early days of the internet, Google could have, you know, been bought by Microsoft because Microsoft, in theory, could have crushed them, but they didn't. So there's no formula for all of this, which is what makes it so exciting. Apple, by the way, is on track to potentially be the first $1 trillion company. I think their market cap, which is the share price times by the number of outstanding shares, is nearly $900 billion, which is a huge factor more than the market cap of Bitcoin. So even though there's all this buzz about Bitcoin, the market cap of Bitcoin is tiny compared to the market cap of Apple, which is really interesting, actually. Ultimately, I think that may change, but it's on track, Apple, to be the first $1 trillion market cap company, which is interesting. So despite everyone thinking that their heyday is over, they're still printing money.
Nah, they're not over yet. They got a long way to go.
Well, they don't have much competition, right?
Not massively, no. I've noticed as well their AirPods, the new earphones that they have, they're really going off. Like, you just have to walk around the city to find out that every second person's got one now.
Yeah. And the watches seems to be also doing better and better.
Yep.
And they're third generation?
Third or fourth, yeah.
Yeah. It's the one thing that I have sort of envy of is the Apple Watch. I wish I could use the Apple Watch, but they lock that down to Apple because that design.
All you got to do is get an Apple phone.
No, why would I do that, Kate? I've got Android. It's just an Apple. You got to keep deleting photos and running out of battery, and
you get a lot of space now, way more than you used to.
It's I mean, on Google, it's essentially unlimited. You know.
True.
So, and you got big SDs if you want them for your music, and you know it's Android serious stuff. You know, it's not for just Photoshop jockeys and stuff. You know,
nah.
It's for us cryptocurrency guys.
Right.
No, I'm kidding. Who knows? I never say never. Anyway, you're listening to episode 110 of the It's a Monkey podcast. My name is Kevin Garber. You can follow me on Twitter at KE_GA. You can follow Kate Frappell, who's the design lead at ManageFlitter. She is just at Kate Frappell. And we're going to take a short break. And after the break, we're going to play the interview that I had with Nathan Hirsch, who's the founder and CEO of FreeeUp. He's also known as the remote hiring guy. We had a great chat about remote work, distributed teams, the future of the way companies structure themselves and work together. So stick around and we'll be back shortly.
Hi, my name is Jo Pinto. I'm the Business Operations Manager here at ManageFlitter. Did you know that Twitter can be a powerful social selling platform? But the first step to effective social selling on Twitter is to grow your Twitter account with high-quality niche followers. For example, let's say you are an online bicycle retailer. ManageFlitter could help you grow your Twitter account by helping you find and follow people who have the word cyclist in their bio. The more targeted your search is, the higher likelihood these Twitter accounts will follow you back. We have millions of users, literally, that have used ManageFlitter's search, sort, and filtering tools to grow their account with the right followers. This has provided them with a solid base to kickstart their social selling. Feel free to drop by manageflitter.com to trial our product or email us at contact@manageflitter.com to schedule an obligation-free walkthrough.
You're back with It's a Monkey podcast. My name is Kevin Garber. I am the co-host of It's a Monkey podcast together with Kate Frappell, as well as the CEO. I'm also the CEO of ManageFlitter and Manage Social for my sins. one of the themes that we chat about on the podcast, obviously, recently we've been talking a lot about crypto and all of that exciting stuff, but we also talk about the changing nature of teams and workplaces. And as you may have heard, if you're a regular listener to our podcast, that over the last 18 months or so, we've moved at ManageFlitter to a much more distributed remote team where as much as 50% of our team is based all over the world, right from Eastern Europe right through to Brazil. And it's something that we've talked about on the podcast is this remote work thing a thing or not? Is it a fad? Obviously, in our industry, it's very much spoken about because there's such a shortage of staff as well. So I thought I'd drag into the podcast someone who's knee-deep in the remote work distributed team hiring side of things. And from Orlando, Florida, I have the founder and CEO of FreeeUp, Nathan Hirsch. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Kevin, thanks so much for having me. And it is not a fad.
It's not. Well, tell us more about that. I mean, what's going on with remote work, distributed teams? Where are we at, and why do you say it's not a fad?
Well, I get to see the inside of it, both from the client side and the worker side of it. I own a marketplace for freelancers, which I really built based on my own hiring experience. I was hiring from Upwork and freelancer.com and all these different places, and I just couldn't find that fast hiring platform. So I built it myself. And when I built this platform and I started having clients kind of experience outsourcing or experience hiring remote workers for the first time, very similar to how I did back in the day, it was very eye-opening. And all of a sudden you can see the wheels start turning in their head of all these things they can now do now that they get access to fast manpower, no matter where it is, without having to compete with all the businesses around them for that same group of people that live in the same town or the same city and all the cities around them. And on the freelancer side, I can't tell you how many people, they start off doing it part-time, they love it, and then eventually they decide not to go into work anymore because they can run their own business freelancing, get a wide range of clients, set their own hours, set their own billing, all that kind of stuff. And it's just been booming out of control. And I mean, the marketplace is growing fast. We're getting freelancers all the time that are going from part-time to full-time and really taking advantage of something that you can only do now. I mean, even 10 years ago, there wasn't freelancing the way there is today.
Why it interests me as well is cities are under a lot of pressure. You take, I'm in Sydney, Australia. It's a beautiful city, and it's an expensive city. And one of the reasons is because at the moment, most of the jobs in Australia are in Sydney and Melbourne, which means that everyone wants to live, who wants to have a 2-hour commute to work and have cheaper rent? No one. So everyone lands up fighting over the rent. Whereas there's beautiful towns in Australia, like I'm sure you haven't heard of them, but places like Wagga Wagga or Albury, which are about 5 hours out of Sydney, where you can get a home for, and I'm not even exaggerating here, Nathan, probably 10% of a Sydney home, right? Probably a $2 million home in Sydney you can get for $200,000 or $300,000 in Wagga Wagga. That's significant a difference, but there's no jobs there. And you chat to anyone in those places and you say, what's it like living here? And they say, as long as you've got a job, awesome. But to get a job is really, really difficult. So to democratize jobs and to increase the access, I'm really excited about it because the spirit of technology, I always feel, is to improve lives, not to concentrate wealth or do things like this or to do things like that. So I'm really excited the way it can democratize and spread things out like that, because in the big cities, if you're not right at the top, it can be really difficult.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, not only do I have freelancers in the marketplace that live all over the world, I have some people that don't technically live anywhere. They're just nonstop traveling. They're digital nomads, so to speak. A buddy of mine just made plans for the next year to go live in a van essentially and work out of his van and just travel across the U.S. It's incredible. It really opens the door for whatever type of lifestyle you want, whether you want to live in the suburbs, whether you want to travel, whether you want to just move every year or every 2 years. The opportunities are there, and you don't need to be in one place. As long as you know what you're doing, as long as you can communicate effectively and keep clients informed and up to date and complete things when you say you're going to, and really keep your word, the possibilities are endless.
I mean, it's been a real interesting journey for us over the last 18 months. which probably worth sharing. I mean, we had for a couple of years one remote worker in South Africa, but I guess it was a unique situation of someone that I knew and worked with, and it wasn't, we didn't go in full steam ahead. But about 18 months ago, what drove our decision was we were really struggling to find local hires. Sydney has Atlassian, Campaign Monitor, very cashed up banks. For a little startup like ours to compete with that on the tech front is so hard. There's Canva as well. So we've got a few great companies here, and the supply of developers is really light. So we decided to give it a go. And what was really amazing is that for the first time ever, we could really focus on hiring right. We didn't have to compromise. Up until then, because of the short supply in Sydney, we were absolutely forced to compromise. The supply was so low that we couldn't get the tick all boxes. But, we really changed our philosophy now to we'd rather have the right person anywhere in the world than the sort of right person in Sydney. And that has just really changed everything in our business. Our team is just humming along at an amazing rate. The challenge has been, and of course everything in life has pros and cons, and the challenge, particularly in Sydney, Australia, surprisingly, is time zones. We've got some people in Eastern Europe and in Brazil, as I mentioned, and to get 2 time zones to cross over, super easy, right? To get 3 time zones to cross over, someone is going to be either waking up early or staying up late. But with a little bit of flexibility, everything's possible. But that's just a little bit of the friction around that side of things. But I guess in the US, because it's such a big market, for US companies, if they're only hiring remote in the US, it's not really a big deal, right?
Yeah, so this is what's cool, and this is part of why I put this in FreeeUp. So when you're a client of FreeeUp and it's free, and anytime you need a worker, you put in a request, right? And inside the request, you can put your time zone or the available hours that you want the worker to be. And if you need someone that can be on every Saturday morning, we're only introducing you to someone that can be on every Saturday morning. So you don't even have to vet through the other people. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to negotiate ahead of time. We're only introducing you to people that will work in the time zone you want. And some clients don't care. I mean, I have a graphic designer and a web developer, and as long as they can meet with me here and there, I don't care when they work, as long as they hit their deadlines. For other things like my assistant that monitors my emails every morning or covers my Skype 24/7, I do care about the schedule, and I only work with people that are happy to do it. The last thing I want to do is force someone to work in a time zone that they're not comfortable with. It only leads to issues down the line. So I agree with you 100%. I mean, we have clients all over the world. It's probably one of the top questions I get asked every day is, can you get me a worker that works in my time zone? And the answer is yes. And there are plenty of people out there that are used to it, that want to do it, that understand that they can run their freelance business better by working in XYZ time zones.
And not only that, we, especially in Australia, probably to a less degree in America, but in Australia, it's a very strong economy. I think we've had a record-breaking 30 years of unbroken economic growth. Jobs are plentiful here, which means the candidates a lot of the time are in the driver's seat. But in other countries, and I keep saying this to some local friends, where in other jurisdictions, for example, Ukraine or Russia or Brazil, you've got these incredibly talented people, but the economies have been struggling. For them to wake up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning for a fantastic job where they were earning the equivalent of almost $1 million a year sometimes, if you exchange rate it and everything, it's not a bad price to pay. So people are flexible as long as there's upside and benefits. So it's not literally 9 to 5. People time shift. I notice, especially developers all over the place, right? Developers sometimes prefer to work early, sometimes prefer to work late. So it's not unworkable, but it's definitely something that people should factor in, particularly if you're in Australia, because we don't tend to be in sync with anyone. We always feel like we're just in this soul time zone. America's going to sleep when we're waking up, and Europe's waking up when we're winding down. And so tell me a little bit about how's business going? What are the challenges? What's the sweet spot that you found where it's your product market fits? Tell us a little bit more about your platform.
Yeah, I mean, business is going really well. We've been growing rapidly. It's funny, the same hiring issues that I ran into 4 years ago are the same hiring issues that lots of entrepreneurs are facing right now. Either the people have never hired before and they need assistance and guidance, and we have a lot of great content on how to identify what you want and interview and manage and onboard and motivate and get the most out. Or we have people that have made bad hiring decisions in the past and they need to kind of their hand held as well, but they also just need access to talent faster. They don't want to go through that same process again. And then you got the people that are booming, they're running great businesses, they just don't have the time to interview. So we're able to solve all three problems in one in this marketplace where we get hundreds of applicants every week. We vet them, we take the top 1%, we make them available to clients. First come, first serve, lightning fast. I mean, where else can you submit a request for a graphic designer and have someone ready to go within a few hours? And then on the back end, adding that really great customer support that I learned from Firestone and learned from Amazon. Very fast responses, there to help and problem solve if anything does come up because we're dealing with real people. And also protection against turnover. I'm sure you've had people just leave in the middle of a project, they disappear, whatever it is. Although that rarely happens on the marketplace, it could. And if it ever does, we cover all replacement costs and get you a new worker right away. So as an entrepreneur, you sleep better at night, you get access to talent quicker. And it's really a solution that I wish I had 5 years ago when I was running my first e-commerce business. And I mean, I was a 20-year-old college kid trying to interview much older people, trying to convince them to work for my company. Whereas now, hiring remote, I get access to all this talent around the world, people with great attitudes that are really passionate about what they're doing that can help my business and really have a mutually beneficial partnership. And that's what it's all about.
I've got a few questions. I love the idea that you vet. Well, obviously one of the challenges is, and it's such a laborious process to interview, put candidates through tech tasks or whiteboarding exercises. Explain to me what your vetting process is. Is it a general vetting process? Is it a detailed vetting process? How many people what percentage do you actually turn away?
Sure. So we actually turn away 99% of applicants. We only let the top 1% in.
Wow.
And the way we vet them is it's on skill, it's on attitude, and it's on communication. And we have one or multiple rounds of Skype interviews. So we're talking to them not in person, but face-to-face or through chat. And then we also have a best practices guide on communication because we know how important that is. And then we have a test on the best practices of the marketplace and on the terms of use of the marketplace to make sure our clients are taken care of and have a good experience. Now, when we're talking about skill, there's a time and a place for a 5 out of 10 worker, and there's a time and a place for a 10 out of 10 worker, no matter what the skill set is. What's important to us is that they're honest about what they can and cannot do. And this is a part of the interview process that's unique. If we're interviewing someone for Facebook ads or we're interviewing someone for a graphic designer, we're obviously going to look at different things, ask different questions. We still go after their references and their background and what company, but that part of the interview process is different. The part that's the same is the attitude and the communication. The best way that I can describe attitude is, I don't know about you, but I hate doing QuickBooks. It's really frustrating for me. It's not something I enjoy doing. But if I hire someone to do my QuickBooks, they have to love doing QuickBooks as much as I love being an entrepreneur. Those are the type of people we're looking for. People who are not just in it for the paycheck. They're passionate about whatever it is they do, whether it's graphic design or writing or Amazon, whatever it is. And then last is communication. And this is the most important part. Communicating is everything. I don't care how skilled you are, what kind of attitude you have, if you can't communicate at the highest possible level with me, it's not going to work out. It's not going to be a great experience. And yes, they speak English at a high level, but it goes well beyond that. I mean, it's giving estimates and deadlines and actually hitting them. It's if your kid's sick, you actually update the client. You don't just not show up. It's about giving updates on a project as it goes about and being available for meetings. We have 15 pages of this, best practices of communication. That's how important it is. So our vetting process is really going through all of that and looking for red flags of what could this person say that means they don't have the skill they're claiming to have? What does this person say that might be an attitude red flag, or what kind of communication concerns do we have on these people? And that's really our vetting process. And it can take up to 2 weeks, and we do that all for the clients. So the clients can just do a 10 to 15 minute interview, make sure it's the right fit, because even the best VAs in the world aren't the best fit for every single client in the world, and quickly get access to that talent and start using it.
I absolutely love what you say about communication. I actually had this chat with our tech lead, Ricky, yesterday. We were talking about some planning the team going forward. And I was actually saying, developers, especially if if they've got the technical side sorted out, one way they can just double or quadruple or even more, 10 times their value is enhancing their communication skills. And obviously English, if you're working in English or what, is one part of that. But as you mentioned, that other part is knowing how to communicate, to be clear, to know when is a time to share something, when is to fill in the gaps. And so if you're a younger person or even a not so younger person listening to this podcast, communication, and that's the wonderful thing about remote work, is that you can't sort of hide between the cracks, and you've got to hire based on people that get shit done, which actually lands up forcing yourself to be quite an efficient company, because people are very much judged on essentially the shit they deliver and the literal communication, which is quite different to an office space where there's corporate politics and there's perception and just a bum on a seat, and it actually lands up being less efficient. So I actually quite love it. But another question that I had, which I think is a very relevant idea. I mean, I remember when I owned a digital agency a few years ago, I got a desperate call from one of our clients saying, our designer who's in Thailand has just disappeared and won't return our calls, and we've got a campaign tomorrow, and we're just absolutely desperate. And I think business continuity is very important. So it's one thing, I mean, you guys offer a guarantee, which is fantastic, but how can people guarantee a business continuity that someone, working on the WordPress site is a digital nomad, and they land up at a full moon party in Thailand, and they just sort of disappear, and suddenly they can't access them? How do you mitigate that type of risk?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be risk, right? I mean, even if you hire your best friend to sit right next to you, there's always a chance something bad happens. With that said, I mean, we have their contact information, emergency contact information. We have copies of their license. It's very hard to get into the network. We take this stuff very seriously, and it's in their best interest. Once they're in and we're bringing clients to them, they don't want to do anything to get removed, because just like clients don't want to do interviews all day, if you're a freelancer, the last thing you want to do is spend all your time looking for clients. You want to do work. You want to bill hours. So it doesn't happen very often. In cases that it does, the client doesn't have to worry about it. All workers on the marketplace are required to respond within 1 business day unless they gave some kind of future notice. And if they don't, if it gets to hour 25, you can contact me or my team, and we'll contact them for you. You don't have to do that chasing. So in the worst case scenario that the person just disappears off the face of the earth and we have no idea what happened and their emergency contact doesn't work and we can't get a hold of them, I mean, we're just going to get someone else that's just as good. We're going to give you some credit and make sure that you're taken care of financially and that you're made whole again. And we're going to move forward and make sure that everything's right and focus on the next experience. And we're going to do that very quickly. So although we can't guarantee that no one is ever going to disappear, we can make sure that the clients are taken care of.
I love it. I love these aspects that you've thought about. And Nathan, what happens if someone wants to hire a full-timer, but a remote full-timer? I mean, do you guys have some sort of, I don't know, finder's fee option? Or because every now and then we're looking at a full-time hire that, whilst we're happy to support you, we sort of want to take them off platform in a way and then wear the risk, but we need that distribution pipeline to draw from.
Sure. So, I mean, hours are between you and the worker. We have plenty of people that are hiring workers for 20 plus hours a week, 30 plus hours a week on the marketplace. And that's between you and them. But if you do want to buy them off, I mean, there's a buyout. I believe it's $2,500 for non-U.S. and $5,000 for a U.S. citizen. But there's risk involved in that too. I mean, I mentioned our guarantee. What if you buy them out and they quit the next day? I mean, you're kind of out of luck. The other side of it is the VAs like being on the marketplace. although you're not really buying them out of the marketplace, you're just buying the right to pay them outside of the marketplace. They like the security. I mean, we pay them just like the workers, just like the clients have that guarantee, the workers have that guarantee too. If a client's credit card gets declined, the workers know that they're going to get paid. So if the worker agrees to it and you want to buy them out, great. It's in our agreement with you. And you just have to understand what the risks are.
And what geographic spread are your freelancers and what geographic spread are your clients, just as a matter of interest?
Sure. So workers are about 40% US, 40% Philippines, and 20% scattered around the world. Not 100% by design. For whatever reason, Filipinos tend to do a little bit better in our interview process. Clients, we're probably about 60% US and 40% just scattered everywhere. I mean, we have plenty of Australian clients. I always kid because my Calendly is open on Monday and Tuesday nights, and that's for my Australian clients because that works out well with the time zone. But I mean, we have clients all over the world, UK, Canada, Mexico, you name it.
Fantastic. So what do you think is the future, Nathan, of remote work? Do you see any trends, for example, like large companies? Have there been any surprises, like some major brand deciding to outsource to the Philippines? Or, are there any indicators that what's the phrasing? The shark has jumped the ship or something like that?
Yeah, so I think companies are getting away from what they've been doing. They've been going to the Philippines or going to India and setting up call centers. And even though it's not that expensive, it still is a lot of overhead that you don't have to deal with when you're dealing with remote. So I've been seeing companies take it a step further and slowly letting people work for remotely and testing it out, having a good experience, and continuing down that path. I mean, any kind of call center, if you put someone in a quiet environment in their house, they can do that same job and it's cheaper and the worker's happier and a lot of times the client's happier too. So I don't see any reason why it wouldn't go in that direction.
Okay, so as a final note, give us some tips. Give us a couple of tips to be an effective freelance or digital nomad, because it's something that especially young people these days, boy, they would love to do that. I mean, one of our team members, Kate, she is effectively a digital nomad now, and she's just loving it. And we would have lost her as a team member, I would imagine, because traveling is such a core part of it. So I would imagine there's people listening to this that go, man, I would, even if it's just for a year or two, I would just love to sell my sort of services across the world. And on the flip side, a couple of tips for people hiring remotely. What have you seen some mistakes and how they can get that fit right and get the value out of the process?
Sure. So if you're a freelancer, you need to treat your clients like gold. I mean, you can kind of disagree at certain points, but I mean, you're running a business. You have to have great customer service. That means fast response time. That means a good attitude. That means clear communication. And it's all about the discovery phase, the upfront, the laying out the expectations. Hey, this is when I work. This is when I don't work. This is when I have other clients. This is what I have going on. Hey, I can't work for the next week. Giving them plenty of notice. So it's all about that communication, building that relationship. It's all about relationships. On the client side, it's all about diversifying. I mean, you know this from having a remote team. You don't want to just hire one person and load them up with everything. It's a really bad business decision. Find certain people that are good at different things, build long-term relationships, even if it's on and off, and really make sure you're protected if someone does leave or disappear.
Okay, one more question, which has just popped into my head while looking at your website. A lot of people are... I think most people in the world and in business always want to do the right thing. The question of exploitation, sweatshops, fair wage, how do you avoid it? I mean, when I'm looking at your site here, and I said for non-US social media management, it's between $6 to $9 an hour US. Now, as an Australian company, that's like, wow, that's fantastic. But at the same time, I want to make sure that person, $6 an hour to them is the equivalent of $25 an hour in Australia. I don't want someone, struggling and just being de facto exploited as well. So is it just a case of the market clears itself and people don't have to worry about that?
Yeah, so it is market, and we're not setting the rates. The workers are setting the rates themselves, and a lot of times because they are on a premier marketplace like FreeeUp, they are able to charge a little bit more, and the clients are happy to pay it because they know they're getting top-notch people. And I mean, we're all about client happiness. We're all about freelancer happiness as well as client happiness. With the we know that the entire core of the marketplace is the freelancers. If they're not happy, we're nothing. So we check in. We make sure people are happy. We encourage workers to not accept work that they're not happy with the rate, especially if it's going to be an ongoing project. So we're very conscious of that. We're constantly checking in with people. The freelancers, I can tell you objectively, and we didn't know this going in. As we were building the marketplace, we didn't know if people were going to hate us or prefer other platforms like Upwork. Genuinely, people love being there. They love that they can set their own rate. They love that we're bringing clients to get to them. They're able to grow their freelance business. That's really what they're able to do. Some of the freelancers are even clients themselves. So it really has created this incredible environment. And it's awesome when I get to travel and meet up with all these freelancers that we've been able to really partner with and have a great business relationship.
You know what I would love, Nathan, and it's sort of tied in with your business and taking them off platform is a pre-qualified developers pipeline around the world. I would pay pretty solid just if I could get these pre-qualified high-level developers that for full-timers, but maybe that's a pathway through your platform as well, because it's very difficult to deal with multiple jurisdictions and multiple recruiters, and it's very messy. But if there was one platform where I could have almost like a remote work recruitment company, which is slightly different to the freelance platform, although there's a link. This a recruitment company that deals across jurisdictions. I would love that, and I think there's and especially if they did genuine pre-qualification.
So we have that. So we have all these workers in the marketplace. We have over 700 plus and growing. We also have a free recruitment program. So if there's anything specific that you want that we don't have, maybe specific to your business, or like you said, maybe you want a full-time person, we'll recruit for you free of charge. We'll present the applicants to you. If you want to hire them, great. If not, we'll add them to the marketplace and offer them to other clients, no problem. And you have the buyout too. So if you want us to recruit for you free of charge and bring you applicants, and if you like them, you want to buy them out right away, go for it. I mean, we do that with plenty of clients.
So another question on the entrepreneur side of things is this is a two-sided marketplace, which are pretty tricky to get going and to get traction on. I mean, once they get going, this is similar to Airbnb and Uber and things like that. What are some tips if someone out there is thinking of building a business that's a two-sided marketplace to actually growing the platform?
It's all about treating people well, building relationships. I don't say that I'm going to do something unless I'm going to do it, unless I'm going to hold my word. And a lot of times where businesses falter, whether you're a marketplace or not, it's because people don't trust the owner. Who wants to be on Airbnb if they don't think they're going to get paid? Same thing with FreeeUp, same thing with Uber. It's all about building that trust and reliability. And sometimes you do take a loss just to make sure everyone's happy and you keep moving forward.
I can sense that you love what you do, and that's why I love talking with entrepreneurs.
I do, and this is great. And obviously, if you have any hiring needs, I'd love to talk to you afterwards. And I really appreciate you having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. And we, as always, will put details about Nathan's platform, FreeeUp, on the website, on our show notes. It's amonkey.com. You can go to freeup.com. You can even drop Nathan a line. I'm sure he'd be happy to hear from you. Tell him you heard about it on the podcast. If you haven't tried remote work, especially for things like virtual assistant, social media management, a bit of development, a bit of design, and especially if you're in new jurisdictions like New York or Sydney or San Francisco, where things are not only expensive, they're so difficult to find, let alone even before you consider the pricing. Have a look at freeup.com. I'm definitely going to have a look at that. But Nathan, what's the best way for them to contact you? Email, Twitter?
So if you go to freeup.com with 3 E's, my calendar is right at the top. You can book a time with me. I'd love to talk to you about your business and how I can help. If you mention this podcast, you get $1 off your first worker forever. And you can sign up right at the top too. It's free. You can find us on social media. You can check out my book, Free Up Your Business. We have lots of free ebooks out there to really help you use remote freelancers in your business today.
I love that idea of setting up a meeting with the CEO on the site. I love that. I'm going to put that on our site where I'm going to put just a couple of slots a week where anyone. Now I'm not looking for people to pitch me. I don't want to be oversold all sorts of bits and pieces, but more prospects and clients or people in the industry or students or someone that can get value from my time I'd love to just put that on the site, and someone can schedule it in, tell me why they want to chat with me, and I love that. You've given me a good idea. So Nathan, I wish you all the best with it. It sounds amazing, and I'm going to spread the word amongst my network. FreeeUp.com with 3 E's, FreeeUp.com, but we'll put it on the show notes so it's easy to find. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Kevin.
The It's a Monkey podcast is brought to you by CheckDog. Use CheckDog to easily review and monitor your website for spelling errors, broken links, and broken images, all with the push of one button. CheckDog can also automatically monitor your website and notify you of newly introduced spelling errors. Go to checkdog.com/podcast to receive 50% off your first month subscription. CheckDog.com, helping the world's leading websites keep their content error-free.
You know, Kate, when we're hiring for a new technical role and I interview guys, and it is mainly guys, unfortunately, there's still a global diversity issue in the software engineering world. It's sort of cool that I chat to these guys from, wow, you name it, Colombia, Holland, India, Ukraine, England, all parts of the US, and it's wonderful. We live in a time and work in an industry where people from around the world can just collaborate on the same project. I mean, I know we take it so much for granted, but it wasn't that long ago where being in a physical room, having access to even a physical server in your room, you know, there was none of this cloud and all of that. It was tricky. I mean, I remember the days even went to remote. I mean, when I was at uni in my undergrad, and like, because I was a bit of a hustler at uni and I sort of nagged the IT department there to give me dial-in access, you know, so they gave me special dial-in access. They didn't give it to most undergrad students. I had to apply for this dial-in access, and I could actually dial in with the modem into the uni and access all my uni stuff from home. And it was cool, right? Because it wasn't a done thing. And I would show my friends and like, oh, I can access my uni stuff from home. And it was quite impressive. Now, I know I sound like an absolute dinosaur, right? But it wasn't that long ago. And so my point is, at that time, working remotely wasn't really an option, right? And the constraints were far bigger. And now the constraints the shackles are off, right? You can choose to work face-to-face if you want. But if you want to go remote or distributed in our industry, and probably in many, many industries, I think even medicine and, you know, there's all crazy things of they control robots that do operations remotely and all sorts of, the space geography is collapsing and continues to collapse, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and it opens up lots of opportunities as well from like individual working sort of side, where, you know, your geographical location might not have certain jobs or certain industries that you're interested in. You can still live there and just work for a company remotely.
Yeah, I think cities are great and convenient, but they also there's other challenges with them in terms of costs and stress levels, and you know, so this may even out the playing field if we can spread the jobs away from the cities a little bit. You know, can be a good thing. I mean, definitely face-to-face is still the preferred way. There's, you know, 80% of communication is nonverbal or something like that, and you definitely feel that if you Skype chat with someone or you text chat, you definitely feel like it's become you've lost a bit of context, you've lost a bit of the sense of even how that day that person's happy, you know, if they're having a good day or bad day. If you work in an office together, sometimes someone comes in and you can see that they're in a good mood, or you can see that they're a bit, and you can work with that. Remote's not that easy to pick up, you know.
Yeah, there's for and against, I think. In that sense, yeah, you sort of miss some of those subtle communication things. But on the other hand, without having as many distractions, as many people. Like, you actually get more done and you can be a lot more focused. And I think the biggest challenge is just being sort of motivated and disciplined.
Yeah, there was a cartoon the other day. Maybe even you tweeted it about something about remote work, where when you first start remote work, it's like, awesome, I can work at home, you know. And second stage was, what was it?
It would be nice to have some human connection.
Oh, yeah, it'd be nice if I would actually have someone to talk to today. And the third one is like, I'm really excited for the guy to deliver the post so I can say hi to someone or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was. I hope that raccoon comes past my window again today.
Yeah, so you definitely have. But, I think today with co-work spaces and cafes and, you mix it up. I mean, I think it's such a long haul, particularly in startups. We got to be focused and productive. That breaking it up is certainly, I find breaking it up actually helps me a lot, changing my context.
Yeah. I found as well, like working remotely in Whistler is, and a lot of the time you can be sort of under house arrest depending on the weather and stuff. But the days that I can get out or split even just for an hour or two to a cafe or something, it actually breaks it and it makes you feel a lot better and sort of more
part of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it can be a bit weird if you're at home and you come to the end of the day and you're like, I haven't spoken to a human being today.
Yeah. Or I haven't left these four walls today. Yeah, it's a little bit intense sometimes.
Yeah.
It's good to break it up.
Got a friend who lives in New York, and she said, the New York winters are incredibly intense. And she said one day on her Fitbit or her, whatever her fitness tracker was, only tracked like 20 steps or something. She was just going from couch to fridge to couch to fridge. Couldn't really get out. So, yeah, but I like the idea of a pre-qualified platform as well. It's incredibly hard to hire. And these freelance platforms can just be a little bit chaotic sometimes, and quality can be very, very sporadic. And if they're pre-qualified, it's, at least it helps a little bit.
Yeah, I did like what he said about the interview and the vetting process to see about, and more than just skill, like attitude and communication as well, which I feel like some of the other, I guess, competitors for FreeeUp don't really do that.
No, and
they'll do maybe like a basic English test and a typing test, and that'll be it.
And it's such a challenge I have with interviewing developers, where some of them just focus on their technical skills the whole time, and sometimes even when I say, well, thanks, but we're not going to proceed with your application, and they get very confused. But my skills match exactly, and it's, well, they forget that we're working with people in a context, and your skills is the first. It's the first component, but beyond that, we need to communicate. We need to work together. We need to have a little bit of rapport. We need to like each other.
That's true.
And yes, these platforms can be focused on buzzwords and skills and things like that. So yeah, I hope he's certainly passionate about what he does, which is always great. And I think the remote work is really going to continue to become a bigger and bigger part of the world that we live in. And I think companies that don't embrace it, I've got friends that work at big corporates that they have to have their bum on the seat, right, certain times, and they cannot work from anywhere else. Forget it. In a couple of years, people aren't going to be interested in that, and it doesn't make a difference. All the research shows productivity is not tied with being a bum on a seat.
No.
It's just not.
No. I think a lot of it comes down to whether that person is capable and knows what they're doing, but also enjoys what they're doing, and they're interested enough to make themselves do it.
Yeah. So the hire's got to be right, the fit's got to be right.
Yeah.
And then it all happens. You can't. The days of just succeeding by showing a face. I mean, I had a friend who worked at a big corporate here in Sydney, and sometimes he would literally go in, put his jacket on the chair, right, and hang out and have coffees half the day, and so that people would think he was there working. It's just ridiculous stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he didn't enjoy what he did, and he sort of, hustled it a bit, but what's the point of that?
You can only sustain that for so long before either you get caught out or you just get bored.
And he did. I mean, he was getting paid big money, and the company was big enough that he, sort of could hide through the cracks. But yeah, I mean, who wants to, I know it sounds glamorous, but we all want purpose and meaning through work and to be able to do our best work. So he did get bored. He just did get really bored. So, I mean, he did do some work, obviously. It wasn't. But to have to sort of hack the culture like that is just a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, that is episode 110, done and dusted. Thank you so much. We're going to be back with episode 111, lucky 111, coming up soon. We'll try to keep them going. We may skip a week or two over the new year. Thank you so much for listening. A special thank you to new listeners. If you're a new listener, thank you so much. And please share it on Twitter, Facebook, tell a friend, give us a review. We love doing these podcasts. And also a special thank you if you're a ManageFlitter user. Big thank you to you as well. We exist because of you guys, and we're doing great things behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, and we're working very hard to keep the wheels going and providing you guys with a great product. So that's a goodbye from myself and from my co-host, Kate Frappell.
See you guys later.